Today we are going to take a look at QuickBooks Point of Sale. We're going to look at doing purchasing and receiving. Under purchasing, we'll take a look at inventory. We'll take a look at how to create a purchase order. We'll look at working with existing inventory. We'll look at working with new inventory. We'll see how to edit and delete a purchase order. We'll then take a look at receiving. We'll see how to create a voucher. We'll look at referencing a purchase order. We'll look at how to create a voucher without referencing a purchase order. We'll take a look at how to adjust a voucher to fix mistakes we may have made. We'll look at how to work with freight or fees that may be attached to a voucher. We'll look at how you can change an item cost or quantity. And we'll look at entering billing info so that information will go over to QuickBooks Accounting if you're using QuickBooks Accounting. So we're going to bring up my point of sale here. So in my point of sale, we want to start out with taking a look at our inventory. Our inventory would be our item list and all the different things that we have in our item list. When I want to purchase something, I can look at my item list and decide how many items I have and do I need more. I could also go out and I could run a report, and I could run a report under sales, and I could run an item summary that would show me my sales by item to give me an idea of what I have sold. And I can pick the date range I want to see. And I've got to pick a date range where I sold something. And so we get an idea of what I've sold. So we can get an idea of what's been selling. I could also run a report for under items. I could run a summary with activity. A summary with activity report will show me not only what I've been selling, but how many I currently have on hand. So I can see how many items I have on hand, and I can see how many items I've sold. So I can also get an idea of what I might need to order more of based on how many I have and how many I've been selling. All right. So next thing we want to take a look at is how we can create a purchase order. So to create a purchase order, we're going to exit out of reports. We're going to go back to the home screen. From the home screen, we can select purchase orders. Purchase orders lets me create a new purchase order. To create a new purchase order, you'll notice I have two red asterisks up here. That means both of those items are required. Hang on just a moment here. Let's see. You're right. I had a question that says you can only see the page that says where we're starting. That's because I didn't unfreeze my screen. I'm sorry about that. That should be better. Now you should see the home screen. So from the home screen, we will go to our item list, and that lets us see our existing items. To begin doing a purchase order, I'm going to go back to my home screen. I am going to choose purchase orders. In the purchase order, you can see that we have two items that are required, purchase order number and vendor. So we will start by adding our vendor. and we'll pick our vendor. Once we've chosen our vendor, I have my purchase order number set up to be the vendor name with a purchase order number attached to it. So now that I've got that going, I'm going to come over here and I want to add some items. There are a couple of different ways that I can add items. I can add items by clicking into the Enter Items field. I can scan a barcode of an item I want to add. I can type in an item number. I can also type in a description of an item I wanted to add. And as I begin to type, I begin to see things that meet what I typed. And I could select an item and add an item that way. But what I find easier is to go over here to Find Items, come down here to Go to Item List, and that brings up a list of all my items. I can then sort by vendor by clicking on vendor on the header bar with the little arrow pointing up, the triangle pointing up. Then that tells me that I'm sorted alphabetically A to Z. And so I can run down here and I can see my Acme merchandise. I can look over here and I can see how many I have on hand. I can come over here to the yellow column, to the dot quantities, and I can tell it how many of each thing I want to order. So I can tell it I want 3 of those, 2 of those, 2 of those, 3 of those, 3 of those, 3 of those, 2 of those, 2 of those, 3 of those, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, and 3. And so I've got my quantities added. I can go to Select. That will then add all of those items to my purchase order. It gives me the total of all the items, and it also gives me the price of the items, and I can see what my cost is going to be for purchasing those items. Up here at the top of the screen, I also have a ship to address and a bill to address. If you have multiple stores and you are going to drop ship the items directly to the store, then you would change the ship to address to whichever store you are going to send those items to, and you can choose a different store to send those items to. You could also change it to a different address for billing. You have the order date, the date you're placing the order. You've got the date you expect the vendor to ship that merchandise out to you. You can also enter a cancel date that says, if I haven't received this item by this date, then I will look at canceling this merchandise. I don't want it. The associate is who these items are being ordered by. By default, it is the person who is placing the order. All right. So next thing I want to do is I've got a new item I want to order. So I want to add that new item to my purchase order. It wasn't in my item list. So to do that, I can go to the little pull down and I can choose Add New Item, or I could go to the Find Items and choose Add New Item. Doesn't matter which way I go, I end up in the same place. I end up in an Add New Item dialog box. In there, I'm going to choose the department that I want to add this for. This is going to be my apparel department. My vendor, which I find this part a little annoying, the fact that it does not automatically default to the vendor that I've already entered on the purchase order, but you do need to select your correct vendor or you won't end up with a vendor. My item name, I'm going to add a logo cap if I take off my caps lock. the item comes in 3 different colors. It comes in red, white, and blue. So I'm going to start with red for one of my attributes. It comes in 4 sizes: small, medium, large, and extra large. So I'm going to put a small. When I'm entering a new item, I always want to start with one of the attributes, if it has an attribute, and then the smallest size that item comes in. I don't need to enter anything regarding quantity. I want to come over here. If I'm doing an item that comes in more than one size, then a UPC is meaningless, because a UPC is unique. It must be applied to each individual item. So we will go to our regular price, and I'm going to sell these hats for $12.95. They cost me $5. If I am adding an item on a purchase order that I'm fixing to receive, I don't need to fill out the average cost, because when I receive the item, it will calculate the average cost for me. So with those items in place, I want to come over here, and I want to create a style so I can get the white and blue as well as the other sizes. So I want to save my changes. I want to add my template. So I'm going to click on my pull down. I'm going to choose my size template. Except I don't really want that one. I don't really want that one either, but I guess I'm going to use that one. So I'm going to delete that one because I want to put that over here. I'm going to order 4 smalls, 5 mediums, 5 larges, 5 extra larges. It doesn't come in extra small or extra large, therefore I won't be entering those numbers. Next, I'm going to add my blue.
Okay.
So I add blue. I'll come over and I will add the quantity I want in the blue. And I will do the same thing for white. And when I say save and select, it is going to create those items and add them to my purchase order. That one's the one I messed up on the size, so I'm going to remove that one because I don't need that one on there. So I now have my completed purchase order. We can see that we have a total for our purchase order. I'm not going to be getting any discounts on this order, so I don't need to worry about discounts. With Acme, I have a standard 30-day policy for when I pay them. So it's got my payment due date. I can expect it to be due August 9th. So I can save and print that, or I can save it only. If I save and print it, my printout would look like that. So we will exit out of there. I now have added a purchase order to my purchase order list. If I find I need to make a change to an existing purchase order, I can go to my purchase order list. I can select the purchase order that I need to change, and I can make changes to it. I go up to Edit, and I can adjust the quantity of an item that I want to order. Instead of 1 of these, I want to get 2 of these, and I will close that. and I'll discard the changes because for some odd reason it's not letting me change that one. Probably because it's so old. In fact, it is so old, I know I'm not going to be getting that stuff in. Therefore, I can actually go up here and I can delete that purchase order, which leaves me with the one we just created. If I realize I want to make a change here, I can go down here to the cap I just ordered, and I decided on this blue cap, instead of getting 4 smalls, I want to get 5, so I can edit it. I can go down and find that blue cap in the small, and I can change the quantity to 5, and I can save that change. So I can edit a purchase order once I've already created it. So now I've created a purchase order. I've got it set up the way I want it. So my next step is going to be to wait for that merchandise to show up. When the merchandise shows up, I'm going to want to receive that merchandise. So to receive that merchandise, I'm going to go to, I got 2 choices. One, I can go to receiving vouchers. I can come up here to the vendor name, and I can choose my vendor. And this tells me that I have a purchase order outstanding. I can receive against it, or I can create a whole new voucher without receiving against it. If I say, yes, I want to receive against that purchase order, it asks me which purchase order do I want to receive against. I choose the one I want, and I can receive all items that are due, and it will add all of those items to my purchase order. Or stop that, to my voucher, not my purchase order. I could also do it by going to the purchase order list, locating the purchase order, coming up here to receive items, telling it, and then I got 2 choices. I can either come over here to the dot quantity column and run down it and tell it how many of each item I received, or I can do select all and continue, and that will drop all of those items onto my receiving voucher. I prefer to go to the purchase order list, select the purchase order I want. I can look at the list of what came in. I can look at what I am comparing it to for a purchase order, and I can make sure I choose the right one. And I add my items. If, as I'm counting my merchandise in, I find out I didn't get everything, then I can make an adjustment to my purchase order. If I didn't get all 3 of these large t-shirts, I could adjust it to say I only got 2, or if they didn't come in at all, I could remove them from the voucher. If I remove them from the voucher, or even if I reduce the quantity, that is going to leave that item on the purchase order so that it's going to still be there for me to receive later as a back-ordered item. If I have the invoice for this merchandise, I can come over to my discount fee freight button, and I can add freight if they charge me freight. I can put in whatever they charge me for freight. If they gave me a discount, I can enter a percentage or a dollar discount if I wanted. If they charge me an additional fee, I can enter that additional fee. I can also spread these costs, if I want, across my item cost. You'll notice here, we've got $7.50 for most of the items except for that one. If I say spread the cost, those prices all change, because it spread the cost of that freight out across all of those items. Or I can leave it unspread. Typically, I like it to be unspread, because that way, when I process this over, and if I send it to my accounting, it's going to drop that straight into a cost of goods freight fee, and I'm going to be able to recover the cost of that freight when I'm doing my taxes, as opposed to spreading it across the items, and I'm not going to get to recover that freight until I sell that actual item. Because when I receive an item, the item goes into inventory. It doesn't go into cost of goods until I actually sell the item. And so by leaving the freight separate, I can claim the freight right away. I don't have to wait till I sell the item to recover my freight expenses. So I'm going to say close there. If I had that invoice, I can also come over here to billing info, and I can add the invoice number from that vendor invoice. I can add the billing date from that vendor invoice, and I can verify that the due date is going to be August the 9th for when they're going to want that payment. If it's something different, I could enter a different date. I can close that, and this voucher is now complete. If I didn't have the billing info at the time I saved the voucher, I can also add that billing info at a later date by going into receiving history. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take this out. And we'll see how to add it. I said we'll see how to add it. Pay attention to me. Sometimes it gets stubborn and doesn't want to go away. So we've got, I can also click on one of these items. I can go over here to print tags. I can tell it I want to print my tags. I can print the tag that I have selected. I can print one of them, or I can print three of them, or I can print all the items that are on this purchase order or this voucher now, and I can print document quantity, meaning it'll print exactly how many tags for how many items I ordered of each item. And if we preview that, you can see the tags it's going to print. We got 3 small whites, we got 2 medium whites, we got 2 larges, we got 3 extra larges, and so on down the list of all the stuff that we ordered. And it'll print all the tags for all the merchandise. You can then tag it, and you can then put it away. When you're all done, you can save it, or you can save and print it. If you save and print it, it will look a lot like that. You get all your items, you get who it's from, and you get the total of the voucher. All right. My voucher is now complete. I could come in here, and I could also create a voucher directly in my point of sale. Not in the point of sale, directly in a voucher instead of through a purchase order. So I pick my vendor, then I want to add my items. I can come up here and I can select an item from my list. I can type in an item name, or I could go down here to list select. That's going to bring up my list. I can sort my list by vendor name, and I can look for my vendor. And I picked one that doesn't exist. But if we pick this one here, we could change our vendor to Aeromax here. I can select this item. You'll notice I do not have a dot quantity column. I can't tell it how many I want to get. To do that, I have to click the little blue plus down here. That will add one item to my voucher. If I wanted more than one, I could click plus more than one time, but it makes it hard to know how many of what you've got. If I go to my next item and I click plus, well, how many of which item do I have? It's hard to say. It's easier, I think, to just add the item, put the items on the voucher. Then on the voucher, you can change the quantity of each item to how many you want. You can then save that, or you can save and print it. And so you can receive stuff directly without using a purchase order to get there. So I am simply going to save this one. I'm going to go back home. If I go to my receiving history, I can see the new vouchers that we just created. The one here for Acme, you'll see it says, I still need billing info. If I come over to my billing info button, I can add that invoice number in. I've got the billing date, and I can save it. Now it shows me invoice number as opposed to needs billing info. And if I am dealing with QuickBooks accounting and sending my stuff over, if it says invoice and a number, it will send that over to my accounting and post it as a bill ready to be paid. If it says needs billing info, it will send over the value of the inventory to my accounting, but it will not send it over to a specific vendor. It will send it over to an account called Unbilled Purchases, and it will hang out there until you come back and add the billing info for it. It then takes it out of Unbilled Purchases, adds it to the correct vendor, and it's ready for a bill to be paid. All right. If I find out that I made an error on this voucher or on this one, doesn't really matter which one, as long as it has not yet been sent over to QuickBooks Accounting, I can make adjustments. To make the adjustments, I would need to copy that voucher, because right now I can't change anything that has anything to do with quantities or cost. Those are locked in. But I could copy it, which gives me an exact copy of that voucher. On the copy, I could make changes, and I could go up here and I could adjust the prices, which I've already done, on my double extra large shirts to $8. Or if they've changed them again, I could also bump those up, and I could change it to $8.50.
Oops.
And so I can change the prices on the voucher directly.
$85.
And so that will change the cost. Yeah, that one I kind of boo-booed. The decimal point ran away. Those got really expensive. So we can adjust our prices for our items after the fact. I would then need to go back and I would need to re-add my billing info in order for it to send it over to my accounting. But now, and this says I have changed prices. Do I want to review those? Do I want to review them later? No, I don't. I know what I did. I changed them on purpose, so I can say no. But I do need to go back and look at my billing history or my receiving history, I need to select the original voucher, which is this one, and I need to reverse it. Reversing will create a return voucher for the exact same merchandise so that you do not have double the quantity of items you should have. Because when I created the new one, that added those items to my inventory again. I don't want double the number of items, so I reversed the original one. The original one is regular and reversed receiving. This one is the reversing return. And so we can correct the voucher if we need to. When you're correcting it, you can adjust quantities, or you can adjust costs, or you can adjust both. All right. Any questions? All right. I don't hear any questions. So if you have any questions or any issues after we're done, you can give us a call, 916-368-1070, or you can drop us an email at tech@bighairydog.com, or you can drop one directly to me at Darrell, DARRELL, F like Frank, at bighairydog.com, and I'll be glad to try to answer the questions for you. We will also be sending out a notice letting you know that this webinar, which I recorded, will be available for you to review online, and you'll be able to go out and review it should you desire to. So, everybody have a great one, and we'll talk to you again soon.